That hat every man wore out the door. That whole way of dressing, grooming, and presenting yourself that has completely disappeared. There was a time when Americans dressed up for almost everything, when how you looked in public was a kind of language, and nearly all of it, the hats, the gloves, the rituals, is simply gone now, replaced by a casual world the people of that era would find shocking. In a few minutes, you are going to hear about the single item every grown man owned and wore every day, that almost vanished in a decade. The thing women went to war over, that was so scarce people drew it on their legs with a pencil. And the grooming ritual every man performed that has quietly disappeared from the modern bathroom. 50 vanished fashion and grooming habits fill this video. These are the ones that make people say, "That is so true, nobody does that anymore." All of them real. All of them how America looked. If you grew up in the 1950s or 60s, you did not just see these styles. You wore them every day because that was simply how you went out into the world. Subscribe before we start, and stay to the end, because the last one is the thing about how people used to present themselves that is missed the most. Every man owned a hat, and he wore it every single time he left the house. The felt fedora in winter, the straw hat in summer, set at just the right angle, was not a fashion statement. It was a basic part of being dressed, like shoes. A man was not properly dressed to go out without one, and there were rules everyone knew. You tipped it to a lady. You removed it indoors, in an elevator, at the table, during the anthem. The hat was a whole quiet language of manners. Here is the myth and the truth behind it. People love to say that men stopped wearing hats because President Kennedy went bareheaded at his inauguration in 1961. It makes a nice story, but it is not true. Hat sales had been falling since the 1940s. The real reasons were bigger. Men drove cars instead of walking to the train, and a hat is awkward in a low car. Young men wanted to show off their styled hair, not flatten it. And the whole post-war world was slowly getting more casual. Kennedy did not kill the hat, he was just the face of a change already well underway. Whatever the cause, it happened fast. In a single decade, the daily hat went from universal to old-fashioned. The hat shops closed, the hat-making towns emptied, and the piece of clothing every man had once considered essential simply vanished from his head. The next thing women wore was so prized that its shortage caused near riots. Before pantyhose, before bare legs were ever acceptable in public, a woman wore stockings, and they were a small daily ritual. They were sheer, they had a dark seam running straight up the back that had to be kept perfectly straight, and they were held up by a garter belt or a girdle, because there was no stretch to hold them on their own. A run in a stocking was a small crisis, patched with a dab of clear nail polish to stop it from climbing. No respectable woman went out in public with bare legs. It simply was not done. Here is the story people forget. Nylon stockings were introduced by DuPont around 1940 and were an instant sensation. Then the Second World War hit, and all the nylon was needed for parachutes and ropes, and stockings vanished from the shelves. Women were so desperate that they drew the seam up the back of their bare legs with an eyebrow pencil to fake the look of a stocking, and when nylons briefly came back, there were actual riots in stores, crowds fighting over the limited supply. Pantyhose arrived in the 1960s and killed the stocking and garter overnight. Then the whole culture relaxed, and bare legs became perfectly ordinary. The seamed stocking, the girdle, the daily ritual of it, and the desperation of the nylon shortage all faded into history. Before we go on, tell me in the comments, do you remember drawing seams on, or a mother who never went out without stockings? I read every single one. People dressed up for occasions that today you would attend in whatever you slept in. You wore your very best to church on Sunday, head to toe. You dressed up to fly on an airplane, which was a glamorous event. Men in suits, women in dresses and hats and white gloves. You dressed up to go downtown shopping, to go to a ball game, to travel anywhere at all. Children were dressed up too. The boys in little suits, the girls in dresses with anklets and polished shoes, squirming in their good clothes. Here is what it really meant. Dressing up was a sign of respect for the occasion, for the people around you, and for yourself. To show up somewhere important in careless clothes was to insult it. Looking your best in public was not about vanity, it was about dignity. and everyone understood the code without a word being spoken. The whole culture relaxed, decade by decade, until casual won completely. Now people fly across the world in pajamas and pull on slippers, and go almost everywhere in whatever is comfortable. The idea of a special outfit for church, for travel, for a ball game, and the dignity it stood for, quietly disappeared. The next thing was the grooming ritual of the well-kept man. A man's grooming was a set of daily rituals, most of which have vanished from the modern bathroom. He shaved with a blade, working up a lather in a mug with a brush, and drew a sharp razor across his face every morning, a small act of care and risk. He kept his hair in place with tonic or a dab of pomade, combed just so. His shoes were shined to a mirror finish, a skill every man had, and he went to the barber shop, not just for a haircut but for a hot towel shave, a place of leather chairs and conversation that was a male institution in every town. Here is what has quietly gone. Grooming was a craft and a ritual, done slowly, with real tools, often in the company of other men at the barber shop. It marked you as someone who took care of himself and respected the people who would see him. The daily wet shave and the weekly trip to the barber were a rhythm of self-respect. The electric razor, the cartridge razor, and the unisex salon replaced the mug, the brush, and the barber shop. The hot towel shave became a rare luxury. The slow daily grooming ritual, and the barber shop as a gathering place, largely faded away. The next thing was the effort women put in before ever being seen. A woman of that era did not leave the house until she was fully put together, and the work behind it was enormous. Her hair was set in rollers or pin curls overnight, or done once a week at the salon and preserved for days, which is why women slept in hairnets and would not let anything touch it. There was foundation, powder, and a bold red lip, applied even to go to the grocery store. There was the girdle underneath, worn for the smooth line it gave. A housewife often put her face and hair together before her husband woke, so he never saw her less than presentable. Here is the truth underneath it. There was real pressure in it, an expectation that a woman be flawless and effortless at once, and much of that pressure was a burden we are right to have set down. But there was also pride and artistry in it, a daily act of putting your best face to the world, and a shared ritual passed from mother to daughter at the vanity table. The 1960s and the decades after loosened it all. Natural looks, wash and wear hair, and a woman's freedom to be seen as she actually was replaced the daily armor of rollers, girdle, and full face. The elaborate, obligatory beauty routine faded, and mostly that freedom was a gift. The last one is the thing people miss the most about how everyone used to present themselves. And what people miss most is not the girdles or the itchy Sunday suits. It is something underneath all of it. The sense that appearance was a form of care. To put on your good clothes, to shine your shoes, to set your hair, to wear the hat and the gloves, was to say that the day mattered, that the people you would meet mattered, that you thought enough of the world to meet it at your best. It took effort, and the effort itself was the message. You dressed for others, not just for comfort, and there was a shared dignity in a whole society that did the same. Here is the whole heart of it. It was never really about the fashion. It was about respect made visible. A man tipping his hat, a woman in her Sunday best, a child in polished shoes. All of it said the same quiet thing. I care how I show up for you, and in trading the discomfort for comfort, which was mostly the right trade, we also let go of a little of that daily, visible, shared respect. The world chose comfort and freedom and ease, and gained a great deal by it. But something small and graceful was set down along the way, the habit of dressing as a gift to the people around you, and a lot of people quietly miss it. But if you grew up in that world and felt the pride of stepping out in your very best, you remember exactly how it felt, and no one can take that back. The hat every man wore and tipped to a lady. The seamed stockings and the nylon shortage women drew on with a pencil. The Sunday best worn to church, to travel, to the ball game. The wet shave and the barber shop. The rollers, the red lip, and the girdle, and the whole idea that how you dressed was a way of showing you cared. Every one of it, gone or nearly gone. Some ended by the car and the changing times, some by comfort and freedom that were mostly worth the trade. None of it felt special at the time. It was just getting dressed. It was just how you went out into the world. in the ordinary rhythm of an ordinary life. We do not really miss the girdles and the hat rules. We miss the care, the effort, the sense that showing up at your best was a small daily way of respecting the people around you and the day itself. That way of dressing does not come back, but it does not really leave either. It is still here, in a photograph, in a memory, in you. So tell me in the comments, what did you or your parents always wear that nobody wears now? Name it, and one thing you remember. Not the clothes, the person wearing them. Subscribe, and we will keep looking back together, because there is a lot more of this country left to remember.